Greetings, my name is Daniel Baker and I'm with the Helping Hands Institute located in Moncton, New Brunswick. The philosophy of Helping Hands Institute is helping people to help each other. We established Helping Hands Institute in 1989 and since then we've been working with a great number of people, and for the last 25 years primarily working with people that are grieving. I know for sure that whatever was normal for us before is no longer normal, and so the fact that normal has changed for us leaves us with a mass of emotional feelings about this as we try to navigate our way through the challenges that COVID-19 and isolating and safe distancing and sheltering in place and quarantine have placed on us in just about every aspect of our lives. There might be a number of things that are happening to you as an individual that are shared similarly to other people, but the fact that it's happening to you makes it a unique experience to you, regardless of whether or not we're all in the same boat. You know, we hear language like that being thrown around. We're all in this together, we're all in the same boat. And yes, intellectually that's very true. We are all in this together. There is no possible way that we can't be isolated from what's happening to everyone else in terms of how it's impacting us. But irregardless of whether or not we're all in this together, the very fact that it is happening to you and to me and to other individuals makes the experience a very unique one, and we all process that information uniquely to the experience that we're having. The situations might be similar in nature. For example, a lot of people have lost their jobs, but how people are responding to losing their jobs is unique to them. So why do I use the term grief in relationship to this coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic that we are all experiencing? Well, a more comprehensive understanding of grief is the normal and natural reaction to anything that you lose that has emotional significance to you. Anything that has been a familiar pattern of behavior and has changed has the potential to create for individuals a grief reaction. And that grief reaction, for the most part, for us, when we understand grief, has been associated only with death. But grief and our reactions to loss are not just associated with death. Our reactions to loss can be any kinds of losses that we hold emotionally significant. And as a result of that, the reactions that we have are normal and natural and unique to us. And the COVID-19 pandemic is certainly one of those losses now. In fact, this pandemic has created a ripple effect of losses that people experience in their lives, and as a result have emotional feelings connected to those losses of what has been familiar. The new normal is a term that gets thrown around now. It was in the newspaper a few days ago. People talk about what the new normal is going to be like. But a lot of people, myself included, are still grieving the old normal and whatever that meant for you. And so because things have changed for us and we have this anticipation of what we are going to be experiencing, we're living in a world that was for us and trying to anticipate a world that will be for us. And so the purpose of me being able to talk to individuals, just like I would in a grief recovery program or a grief and loss program or grief counseling with any other individuals, is to talk openly, honestly, truthfully about individuals' experiences that they've had, how they feel about those things, truthfully, honestly, openly, with those individuals so that they can discover and say for themselves the emotional impacts that these kinds of losses have had on their lives. So I say the experience is unique. It is. So what a person is experiencing is unique to them, and therefore the recovery for individuals is unique to them as well too. So not everybody recovers the same way, not everybody adapts the same way, not everybody grieves the same way. And that's okay. That's really okay. But I got to tell you that in society we haven't made that okay for a lot of people. There's a lot of intellectualizing around grief and our reactions to loss that we have of any kind, which can make it very difficult for us under even the best of circumstances as we're trying to grieve. One of the things that grief does for us, because people don't understand or are not helpful in the ways that we need them to be helpful, is that grief on its own can create a great deal of isolation for us. Now, given the fact that COVID-19 and sheltering in place has actually forced us into isolation, where we have to shelter at home safely or keep distances away from people, at a time when we're grieving, adds double to the isolation. But there are some things that we can do in order to help us with that isolation. But I want you to understand that grief just on its own can create a great deal of isolation. That old familiar phrase, alone in a crowd, well, that's very true. Where people will still be in incredibly close proximity to other people but feel desperately alone, even while they're in a crowded place. So the isolation part is an emotional isolation in which I don't feel understood, I don't feel like I'm allowed to be able to share the feelings I have, or that I've learned that the feelings that I do have are wrong. But I am here to tell you today that whatever you are feeling is okay. What you do about those feelings is a matter of you taking action. So in the programs that I offer individuals is really to help them discover what actions need to be taken so that they can take those kinds of actions. It's really interesting because, you know, the children's program, Mr. Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, you know, Mr. Fred Rogers said some very powerful things and very influential things to children to help them with this kind of stuff, but it also applies to adults as well. And one of the things that he said was, anything that is a human experience is mentionable. Therefore, if something is happening to us as humans, it should be mentionable. We should be able to talk about it. And if we can talk about it, then that's really important. Because if you can talk about it, it's manageable. So his expression was, if it's mentionable, it's manageable. Now, is that easy to manage? Not necessarily. But you can't manage anything if you can't mention it. So if you feel isolated in the emotional responses to how all of this stuff is processing for you, and you're not able to mention it without somebody telling you that what you're feeling is wrong, or you shouldn't feel this way, or keep a stiff upper lip, or pull up your bootstraps, you know, all of the kind of platitudes that we say to people when they're really trying to process and understand their feelings. You start to shut down on those and you don't mention them anymore. Therefore, they're not manageable anymore. Let me see if I can give you an example of conflicting emotional responses to a loss experience. A good friend of mine died from a terminal illness, and I miss him greatly. But at the same time, I'm relieved that he doesn't have to suffer anymore. So those are two conflicting feelings. I miss him, but I'm relieved that he's no longer suffering. I was regretful that I didn't get the opportunity to say goodbye to him, and I was a little bit angry with him because he didn't say goodbye to me. There are 4 conflicting feelings all over one event. And that's just a short example about the kinds of emotional conflicts that can be created over an event. And that's all they are. They're just feelings. But if we don't mention them, we can't learn how to manage them. I'm not sure what kinds of things people are experiencing in terms of their own personal lives, but I can only imagine how challenging it is for a lot of people. I know that my wife and our family, we face our own particular challenge related to this, and I have emotional reactions to and feelings about some of the challenges that we're about to face in our lives that we're facing now. But mine are very much different than a number of other people's, for sure. You know, people are not used to spending so much time together, and so it might have created trouble in your relationships with your significant others, with your parents, your children, your neighbors, complete strangers, when you're out shopping or doing whatever you need to do in the community, the frustrations that we feel about not having our autonomy and independence anymore, the kinds of restrictions that we have that have really kind of flipped our world upside down, inside out. You know, the Easter weekend, you know, the family gatherings, the church services, all of the kinds of routines and rituals and just normal day-to-day kinds of activities that would have been commonplace in our lives have all shifted and changed. You just can't do the kinds of things that you would have normally been able to do because of this pandemic. You know, people might be worried about other friends, family, and other parts of the country, other parts of the world. You know, when we hear about all of this death and disarray that's happening as a result of this pandemic, and the concerns that we have for the healthcare workers and frontline individuals who are literally putting their lives in the line in order to deal with the impact of the health crisis that we're facing. Whether or not we have the right protective personal equipment. Do the healthcare providers, doctors, nurses, anybody that's working in the healthcare industry have what they need in order to help individuals who are vulnerable to this? The school year that has been canceled for children that are now being educated at home by parents that never really thought themselves to be homeschool teachers. The kinds of financial stresses that people are now going to face as a result of losing jobs and income, and the worry about how long this is going to take before it comes back to normal, which it never will. Not the normal that we've known before. There will be dramatic changes that we will all have to face and all have to adapt to. And that causes a great deal of stress, anxiety, apprehension. And for some individuals already under a great deal of stress and anxiety and apprehension, just on a day-to-day living. I think that it's important for us to acknowledge that whatever you're feeling is okay. Feelings are feelings, that's all they are. They have the potential to create actions for us as a result of that. But I want you to understand, though, that what you're feeling is normal and natural. That may be the only normal and natural thing that is occurring for tens and hundreds of millions of people around the planet. So let's not make it abnormal. Let's not make it wrong to feel how you're feeling about things. Let's do something about those feelings. Let's address those. Let's mention them so that we can manage them. So in the coming days, weeks, months, however long this is going to take, I know that there are a number of people that are putting together resources for individuals to help them. This would be one of those resources. I will be producing a number of videos that people can view as well. I believe that Canadian Mental Health here in New Brunswick is trying to put together some kind of program for us to be able to reach out to people and have people have their questions answered and their concerns raised, and being able to provide them with supports in a new way, because we can't do the typical face-to-face group activities that we would have done normally as a result of sheltering in place. So until that time, I want you to know, stay safe, and that what you're feeling is normal, and help is on its way. From the emotional side, I can't really do anything about any of the other stuff. I'll leave that to the other experts, and maybe what we can do in the meantime is I'll provide the resources for people to have a look at some things, and then we can go from there. Until then, stay safe, and thank you very much.